Welcome, everyone. I want to talk about some more deceptions of this society. And, we live in a very deceptive society on every possible level. I mean, you're lied to the minute you come out of the womb, you're lied to actually in the womb. Your parents are misinformed, delusional people, most likely, who haven't probably learned much of anything, is just trying to survive or clinging on to their pseudo wealth by supporting a corrupt society. Part of this is this ignoramus way of any alternative person following people that are from the government, from the military, ex-military. There's no such thing as ex-military, by the way. And taking them for real, and all those people connected to them. There's this streams of lies and misinformation, and nothing happens in this society that isn't scripted. And of course, people don't seem to understand all that. One of those people, of course, is Colonel John B. Alexander, who's been out there for many years with the non-lethal weapon program. He's recently, as his last coup de grace before dying, he's fairly old, has come out to further support the government as he always has been. Now, if you listen carefully to what this guy says, and I've listened to many of his interviews, and, we all on the other side here are looking for anybody that will support us or any ally that we can possibly find to support our opinion because we are so attacked by everyone. But you have to be very careful. You got to remember these people are well-schooled. They have billions of dollars of support behind them that have trained them. They've went to school after school to learn how to be deceptive, how to get to know people, how to get information out of them. And of course, here's a prime example of one of those typical CIA operatives that pretends to believe in psychic powers and other things and traveled around the world looking for shamans that and so forth. But of course, while he states he's seen amazing things, he has absolutely no footage of it. Claims he does have footage, but never seems to release it. So he has a bunch of still footages that he's taken vacations around the world to find shamans and see if they could get their secrets, or who knows if they were kidnapped, tortured, and murdered later. We have no idea, but we certainly know how these CIA people work. So after spending... it's an interesting history, and of course, he entered the military as a private, which is very interesting, and worked his way up and went to officer, or was nominated for officer. Now, how do you think you go in as a private and all of a sudden go to officer candidate school? Because you are a maverick? Troublemaker? Wanted to do things different? Let me tell you how you do that. Kiss ass. He's a military kiss-ass. First of all, number one, he is an infantry officer who spent his infantry time in Vietnam. That ought to tell you something right from the beginning. This certainly isn't a guy that, even like his buddy Colonel Michael Aquino, the famous Satanist, who doesn't seem to talk about him at all, even though they were supposedly studying the same types of things, was at least an intelligence officer working in PsyOps. He's a nobody. He's an infantry guy in the field and so forth. Spent 33 years in the military, rose to the rank of colonel. Now, he claims he knows everything, he's so special and so everything else. How come he's only a colonel? How come he never made it to general? I think a lot has to be stated there. He thinks he's got all the top clearances, knows everything. Aquino said the same thing, and Aquino came up with the same type of rhetoric, which he's now pushing this Alexander about the UFOs and the non-existence aliens, that your government didn't lie to you. But, he's never said the government lied to you. He's never criticized the military one iota. He comes out in support of research in alternative areas of thought, etc., and claims he'd seen things, etc., etc. That doesn't mean anything. He hasn't criticized any government programs. They've never done anything wrong. It's just a big zoo of government. There's no hidden money. This is the naivete and the skepticism, of course, attitude of that nobody lies, nobody cheats, nobody's immoral. There weren't assassination teams in Vietnam that went out and murdered civilians by the thousands. No, that never happened. The military is all nice guys, and they don't torture and murder people, except for all the military people I've ever known who readily admit that they're given chemicals and drugs and taught how to torture, including the good old thieves, whatever the hell they have done. So when we deal with all these things, we get into the same nonsense of lies and deceits. And of course, if you come out like a skeptic, well, who's going to talk to you? If you come out to all these alternative people and you say you're a bunch of idiots and jerks, I'm just here to watch you and see what you're up to, well, how far are you going to get into that? If you come out as the big friend and buddy, and he's known every alternative type person, including Jim Shannon, the guy with the First Earth Battalion nonsense, which was a comic book written as a sarcastic comic book that the idiot military took as, yes, guys got real research, When I was pumping gas, I had the same thing that we should love our enemies, yeah. Shannon wrote a sarcastic book. He even admits the fact that this was sarcastic, that we basically was stating that we, as a military, so we don't get destroyed again, as happened in Vietnam, which continues to this day by the incompetent boobs that the military are, the lying, murderous scumbuckets that they are. He readily admitted that, and he said, well, for some reason, the military took it over and took it seriously. So it's quite amusing. And of course, good old Colonel here, the kiss ass, wormed his way into every single alternative person there, from Mac at Harvard and his UFO research to every, if you go to his website and other things, he's got pictures of himself with everybody. The CIA must be rolling over in laughter, as he must when he sits in his mansion, talking about nonsensical weapons and so forth, and has never released or said anything that wasn't already known to the public, as he can't anyway. The military, whether you're a private leaving the military or a person who's an officer, you can't say a damn thing without getting it cleared by the military. And they have a large force of people who watch those military people, right down to average people. If you got a bad rep, they call you. And I knew an idiot who was a jerk and who they checked on and was a private. But he was such a stooge that they kept checking on him. So the whole idea is to think that this guy is going to come out with anything other than the company line. There's no missing money. There's no dry budgets. There's nothing. There's hardly any money. We could barely get by. He is the biggest naive stooge, or the most idiot CIA agent I've ever heard. But of course, this fits in the way you manipulate. So you stay that and you act like the world is just like everybody thinks it is. It's just a government full of people that are struggling and their personalities, and there's good and bad. Well, of course that's true to a degree, but it's also the fact that this entire government world is ran by organized crime, and that includes the military that smuggles stuff in and does things as well. And I'm sure he knows plenty about that, but you won't talk about it. And the crap stuff that is bought by the government that doesn't work, he doesn't talk about that. He doesn't talk about the crap rifle the M16 is. Doesn't talk about that. So the point is that this is some sort of kiss ass that spent 33 years in the military and had no further use, and found a little area of research of non-lethal weapons to get into at a time when it was done. He also retired in 1988. So the point is what does he know is going on in the modern military now anyway? You're talking about a long time ago to be in retirement. What is that, almost 30 years of retirement alone? So what does he know about what's out? Well, I got my contacts. Yeah, you know all the same stooges you knew before, your Michael Aquinos and everything else. And Michael Aquino comes out with the same line on aliens, that there is no aliens that they're aware of. Yes, there's strange things. They all play this game because, of course, that keeps the door open for suckers to go talk to them. So the point is, it's pretty ridiculous to come out and say there's nothing strange in the sky, there's nothing unexplainable, etc., etc. And the point is, he doesn't come out with it. And the interviewers are so taken back by the fact that this guy is a government person that appears to be on your side that they really don't get into any hard-hitting questions. There's nothing talked about the incompetency of the military that hasn't won a war since 1776. We don't get into all of these things, the massive criminal involvement that the military is going through, and the fact that the military, plain and simple, can't do anything right. So the point is that none of this, as he put it, they talk about nonsense, which means nothing. I've seen some great psychic powers and bending is. Yes, that's right. So, absolutely vacuous nonsense pouring out of this diarrhea mouth professional killer. So the whole idea is that giving credit to any governmental official, whomever at any level, is nonsense. Giving credit to the military, like this is 1946, to that they're doing us a great job when we have never been attacked as a country ever, except by the Japanese, who did a horrible bungled job of it. Couldn't even hit fuel depots, missed all our main aircraft carriers because they just happened to be in harbor, weren't in harbor. They didn't blow up any of the repair facilities. It goes on of the bungling boobs that the Japanese were. Which is the only reason they were so bad that the American military finally kind of overcome them, but really didn't. They lost most of their military by trying to take two islands and lost huge amounts. By the time the American military arrived at Japan, it was pretty much devastated. So the point is that we need to understand that this guy, who was nothing more than an infantry officer in a war that they lost, certainly didn't have any value whatsoever. Obviously, the guy that went up the ranks from nothing is a big kiss ass. The point is, he talks nothing of value. Now he comes out as his last coup de grace as he gets to the age of dying. To talk about how the whole UFO thing is complete myth. There isn't anything. The government knows nothing. They're hiding nothing. And of course, the sky is green. The moon is made of green cheese. And I can't wait when we can get up there and harvest that. So we go on and on with this nonsensical babble from what is nothing more than a government whore, as all the military is. And we got to stop supporting organizations that are working against the public and taking food and education and building out of our pockets, giving it to their trillion-dollar budgets that go to nothing but keep the rich richer while we have people living on the streets. We can't afford medical care. That's right, we can't afford it. We've spent $5 trillion on that goofball war in Afghanistan. For what? To keep them rich, and these kind of guys play a big part in it. And as I said, don't think that you're going to get an adversarial type of person who's going to come in, that you're going to get an unamazing Randy type, and anybody's going to want to deal with those people. You're going to get a manipulator like this who's worked his way. Basically, he's done nothing. He hasn't supported anybody. There hasn't been any money passed. He goes around living on his goofball reputation as a loser soldier after 33 years, reaching only the rank of colonel, and has manipulated his way into things by writing some goofball book. Well, I'm not a bad military guy. I write about, non-lethal weapons. We just torture people until they drop and shit themselves. Yeah, I'm a good guy. This kind of garbage got him through the door. And why do you think he wrote these books? This is an affront to everything, and that people keep falling for these losers, these fake remote viewers that the military has pushed forward. Oh, they found this, and he keeps pushing. It's amazing how he also pushes all those fake military people like McConnell. Oh, yeah, well, he figured out exactly what the submarines. Well, that's not what I hear. The intelligence were well aware of that, and that information was fed to him so that he could then perpetrate this lie they're doing, along with Ed Dames and all the other people that have now made millions off of this remote viewing debacle that they had absolutely nothing to do with it. bringing in people like Ingo Swann and saying he wasn't the trainer of it all. All the information is bogus and lies. And I don't believe that these military, quote, remote viewers did anything with their garbage mentalities and their psychotic murderers, which is what a military person is. They volunteered in a volunteer army to go out and kill people. So I have no respect for them whatsoever, and I'm certainly not going to respect their information. Anybody that falls into the stupid delusional thing that the military and police and we can throw in doctors and lawyers are all there to help you, you are a stooge. You know nothing. This credibility that somehow the military could run anything properly, particularly a psychic-based division, is beyond. But of course, then they get away from that. Well, it wasn't us. It was Ingo Swann doing it. Whoever the hell he is that came out of nowhere, all of a sudden presenting himself apparently to the SRI Institute and then worming his way in with the military because he was, quote, a talented psychic. Who, by the way, if we want to believe in Ingo Swann, did an entire book of how he remote viewed alien activity, especially on the moon, for the CIA, called Penetration. Isn't that interesting? So we go on with report after report of how real all this is, and then he comes out with the same thing, that the government didn't lie. They're just a bunch of bumbling idiots trying to get by in life and doing all the things, and of course they wouldn't lie. They wouldn't do anything. This guy, to be able to stand there and say this kind of nonsense is the highest degree of stupidity. And it's so, what gall this guy has. And it's amazing how people buy into this. Like they buy into the jive that all these so-called remote viewers do, like the goofball Colonel Ed Dames, who every year comes out and say we're going to be invaded by aliens and they're going to defoliate the earth. He's been doing this for now almost 20 years. This is your top remote viewer? Well, we go on to a guy that was pushed out there and paid off like all the other remote viewers with millions of dollars, not from the government. They just did the little pushing like they push so many people. Like they push people like Terence McKenna, who they made sure that his book was a big bestseller and he got support because he's one of their government agents. McKenna knows nothing. His brother was a biologist, and whatever book was written based on his things. McKenna has no educational background. He talks like a stooge. So the point is that the plants talk to me, except I've got a cancer in my brain the size of a baseball, and there's no answers. So I'm glad that he's going to tell us how he knows everything. So the point is that all of these frauds that are pushed in front of you that people buy into and have the wool pulled over their eyes is really sad. One of the most important tenets of reaching a high state of consciousness and approaching the highest state called gnosis is not having knowledge directly, but it's understanding who's lying. That's gnosis. Few seem to understand that. Few seem to know who are pretend liars who are put out there in the public to dissuade you and move you away from the truth as the nice little government people, the nice little remote viewers. Remote viewing of what? What have they achieved? Intelligence information? Don't believe any of it. And if we verified what these remote viewers had about submarines, well, why bother have somebody do it ahead of time? What's the point? The minute a submarine goes out of the dock onto the ocean, you're going to see what it is. Plain and simple. So it's a lot of nonsense, and I don't believe any of it. And when you look at what these people have done in terms of their track record and the books they've written, they're shallow nonsense that they stole from the real people, people that did all the research for years who are still under secrecy orders. Well, how interesting is that? So what little has been done by them, they want to take all the credit whatsoever if anything's been done. But certainly the military can't run anything well to begin with, and certainly not anything metaphysically based. There was a certain group interested in that, it appears, particularly at the time when it was very popular in the public opinion. So everybody was behind it. Everybody was smoking dope, fucking around, and they were thinking big thoughts because of that. In between the dope and the sex, they postulated on big thoughts. So the point is that this fit in very well at that particular time, and a particular time when the military was in total chaos, because here was another lost battle. They lost in Korea, they lost in Vietnam, they lost in so many other skirmishes, and they continue to lose up to this day. There really hasn't been a clear win by the, quote, U.S. military that I can think of, other than the actual Revolutionary War. Certainly World War II, particularly in Europe, had very little to do with the Americans and what they did, because they were pretty poorly equipped and everything else. The Russians won that war, along with the French and British, who we supported. When it came to the Pacific, a lot of bad fighting went on there, and as I said, armies were basically crushed. So the whole idea is that this is complete and total nonsense by people that we shouldn't be giving any credit to whatsoever. They've done nothing. They continue to do nothing. They live in a reality of murder and destruction, and have them to think that they can tell us, or that this guy can even interpret the information that he's seen around the world from shamans, etc. At any level of validity is insulting to people who have studied this and haven't come from his vicious, destructive, murderous background. So we all need to quite understand that and start moving away from these mouthpieces, these government whores that continue to perpetrate their nonsense, as all these remote doers do, by training people and going out in the public where they're looking for talented people who they can use and abuse and possibly even abduct and force to work for them. So these things happen, people. Wake up. These are not on your side. The military is not there to help you. Maybe you should have seen that in Waco, Texas, when they moved in tanks there and murdered a whole bunch of people. That was a military operation, as so many other ones are against their own people. They could care less. And certainly this kiss-ass colonel, who couldn't get to the rank of general even after 33 years in knowing everything and having all the top clearances, once again feeds us garbage. Once again, he comes off as the nice guy. Well, it's interesting, these are real facts, there really are cattle mutilations and strange things in the sky. But, there really is no aliens. So don't fall for the con, people. Wake up. Know, at the very least, what is wrong and what is a lie. Once you do that, the truth is easy to find.